Welcome, DC International and Tamara Gibbs-Franklin. Thank you so much, all of you, for being on. Tamara, in 1 to 2 sentences, can you go ahead and tell us what 1010 Communications is doing and then what your role is as CEO?
This is a small business that I started 2 years ago. And what it does is it helps organizations, nonprofits, companies do public relations, media relations, marketing, and content creation.
Okay. And your role as CEO?
My role as CEO is I'm the principal consultant. I am a CEO of one, access to other experts in the creative content space, like videographers and graphic designers and such. And so, in my role, I try to help clients that come to me seeking strategy or help with creating content. For example, I had a client who needed to redo their website, and so I helped them visualize how best to create the best user experience for visitors visiting their website, as well as creating a narrative that people could see on that homepage.
Okay, really opportunities for storytelling and for people to get their vision and their message across to bring others along with them, eh?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you have a long-standing career in education as well, currently the Associate Professor of Communication and English at the College of Southern Maryland. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So even though my career as a journalist led me to become a public relations practitioner, a marketer, as well as an educator, I've always been an adjunct in the background. And so now I'm teaching full time in addition to running my business. And it's been a very rewarding experience. I like meeting students, like the students here on the line. I like helping them think about their path forward and helping them to recognize that they have special gifts and talents, particularly when they're creative and innovative. So I've had over 2 decades experience teaching at schools such as the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, North Carolina Central University, Meredith College in Raleigh, Trinity Washington, right there in your backyard. I've taught there as well. And so now I'm at the College of Southern Maryland and I'm having a great time.
Beautiful. And yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here at Access Co-Leaders, highlighting these students' stories and their pathways to success. So thanks for speaking to that and for all the good work you're doing in that realm. Tell us, where did you grow up? And then we do know you're based in Maryland now. So
Yes, I'm a long ways from home. I come from Southern Illinois. I'm from Southern Illinois, a small town called Carbondale. And there's actually a university in my hometown, Southern Illinois University. Go Salukis. I didn't go to college there. I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's in central Illinois. And so that would be one of the state's flagship schools, as well as SIU. And, I come from humble beginnings, if I'm honest. I grew up in public housing. And I know what it means to be in a family where there's limited resources, but a real desire to be educated and to move beyond your circumstances. And so I really think that fueled me in my journey and possibly sparked my interest in writing and telling stories and eventually becoming a journalist after I graduated from college. So I'm a Midwesterner. I've got those Midwestern values, work ethic, being consistent, being loyal, following through, and certainly knowing how to stretch resources.
all right, beautiful. I can attest to that. I'm from Wisconsin myself, and yes, those values do live on and live strong. Continue to push us every day. And thanks for speaking a little bit to, your growing up and how you use that as your power, your strength, and also your commitment to advocating for others. So that's beautiful. One last question for me, and then we'll hear from our students. In middle school and high school, were you already interested in giving back, education, communication, storytelling, or what was keeping you busy during those years?
I believe that I was a burgeoning journalist, even in the eighth grade. I loved, loved, loved reading. You couldn't pull me away from a book. The library was my jam. And in addition to that, my mom bought me, our students in the room won't know what this is, but before we had these, jazzy cell phones, right? We had what are called typewriters. And my mom bought me a typewriter, a Smith Corona typewriter. And I loved not only reading stories, but I liked creating my own stories. And so once I got a hold of that typewriter, you would find me in my bedroom when I wasn't hanging out with friends or at cheerleading practice. I'm just banging out a story. And I have some of those drafts, and it's nice to go back and look at those. And so I would say, whatever that thing is that you're really passionate about right now, there's a chance it's going to show up later. And at that point in time, I had no idea that I would become a journalist. Honestly, I really love science. And so I thought I would be a doctor. I really thought, oh, I'm going to be a scientist or a doctor, but I am not gifted when it comes to math. Chemistry really was really hard for me when I was a freshman in college. And so I made the decision that, I think I'm going to try this storytelling, this journalism thing, because that's what feels natural. That's what kind of fuels me and makes me feel happy. I'm always happy when I can write. I'm always happy when I can create something, particularly if it shares a message that I think people need to hear, or it helps someone who might be voiceless or someone who might feel invisible. It helps them to feel seen. Those are things that really stoke my joy. I get really excited. And I can take that all the way back to living in public housing with a single mom who had the forethought and the value of education to give me a Smith Corona typewriter. And the rest, as they say, is history, or still history in the making.
Beautiful. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for speaking to that, and like how your passions, your natural, what you naturally gravitate to, can sometimes seem innocuous at a younger age because you're somewhat planning your whole future and what do I want to say I am. But thinking back, taking a second to what do I actually really love doing, and starting from that place. All right. Anthony, what's your first question?
Like, what did you do in like during high school and like college to like push you through to do all your work?
Oh, Anthony, it's nice to meet you. And that's an excellent question.
Nice to meet you
Well,
too.
yeah, I would say kind of what I told you before, when you come from humble beginnings and you see your parent or parents or your family members working really hard, you automatically know that that's the expectation, that you should maybe do that, do the same, what they're modeling. And so for me, I had great role models in my family. My mom is first generation college. And so I can remember Anthony as a little kid, like little kid, because my mom had me when she was 18. She used to put me on her bicycle, and I have vivid memories of her pedaling all the way to the Southern Illinois University campus. And I can remember sitting with her in lectures. She would take me to class. Her professors would allow her to bring her baby girl to class. And I can remember sitting in libraries or sitting in the bed with her while she did her homework. And now that I think back on that, wow, what a great example. What a great example she set for me, that you can have certain circumstances. And yes, they're barriers, but they don't have to be the period at the end of your sentence. They actually can be the very thing that just propels you forward. And so you ask, like, what kind of things did I do in high school? You know, Anthony, I wasn't always the talkative, smiling, enthusiastic person that you see. Particularly when I was in middle school, I was probably like most middle schoolers. You're just trying to figure it out, right? You might have some things that, you're insecure about, and, maybe you really care a lot about what people think of you. And so you're kind of afraid to do things or say certain things. What happened for me was one summer I decided to learn how to do a round off. Do you guys know what that is? That's not like a super high tech gymnastic move. That's literally like
A
run.
cartwheel.
Yeah, like twist your body a little bit. It's not a flip. It's not anything like that. But I was determined to learn how to do a round off. And I spent an entire summer practicing my round off. And I wanted to try out for cheerleading. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad the judges took mercy on me with my little round off. But honestly, that was a great building block because cheerleading brought something out of me that I might not have discovered otherwise. I was also interested in the school newspaper. So I served on the newspaper staff at my high school, the yearbook staff. I also was interested in science, as I mentioned. And so I was in a variety of different clubs. I just always stayed curious. And that was probably that journalist in me, right? But, Anthony, again, my mom was a great role model. My family members were a great role model. And also, I just got it in my mind that, I don't want to be that girl that's just stuck in the corner. I actually have something to say. I actually have something to offer this world. And so I'm going to try to do as much as I can for as long as I can. And I think I probably still hold that mindset even till this day, because the two of you are probably looking at me saying, she's old, but true, but we still have a lot of runway, don't we? Adults on the line. We
Yes,
have
we
a lot of
do.
runway, right?
Yes, we do.
And so, one day you're going to be us. One day you're going to be sitting where I'm sitting, talking to some students, and you're still going to have a lot to offer this world. So I'm actually back in school. I'm in school just like you. I am actually now pursuing my PhD, and I know exactly what it feels like to be a student who has to do homework, who has to meet deadlines, who's trying to meet their professor's expectations. And so all of it comes full circle. Just know that all the things that you're doing, it all matters. All of it matters.
Yes, definitely that determination to do the roundhouse. It seemed like a smaller thing, but you had the daily commitment, and then it kind of opened up doors for you, opened up yourself to another part of your personality that is continuing to shine and guide you today. So I love that commitment to something. It kind of seems small, but it totally was not. And your commitment to it is what really made it grandiose. So thank you,
Yeah,
Tamara.
that's a fun memory. Thank you, Anthony.
All right, Eileen, did you have a question?
I had so many questions. Thank you for the invitation to ask Tamara a question here. But Tamara, I know that you have experience in journalism and even reporting. Can you share with us a couple of things? One, what is the most exciting and the best part about your experience as a reporter and a journalist? And then what was the most challenging thing that you experienced in that field?
Oh, wow. That's an excellent question, Eileen. So, what I would say is the best part about it was telling those stories, taking me right back to that Smith Corona typewriter and telling stories. And now I get to tell other people's stories. And when you're a journalist, you take a lot of pride in bringing to people's attention things that maybe they would not have considered. And for me, I had to cover a lot of stories that were kind of bad things that happened to good people. And it was really important to me to make sure that people who saw those kinds of stories knew that the person or the people impacted, that they mattered. And so that was really important to me. There's a real blessing, if you will, in being able to tell Anthony's story or Sayuri's story, or Vanessa's story, and being entrusted with that and telling it accurately, doing my homework, doing my research, and also making sure that I'm fair and making sure that I'm balanced, and then presenting that to the audience. And so that was very fulfilling. The other part of it is I'm a creative. I must create, whether it's a poem or a blog post or a video. I need to create. That's how I have been designed, and that's what I offer the world. And so the daily task as a journalist of creating a story from start to finish was incredibly rewarding and aligned very well within my gifts and talents and what I felt like I was called to do. And so again, loved my career as a journalist, did it for 22 years and don't regret a single moment of it. It was an amazing ride. I would say some of the challenges that come with that type of career is it's very high pressure. There is a survey that comes out every year. So as you guys are in college and you're thinking about careers, look for these surveys that tell you, or not just, the highest paying jobs, but look for the surveys that say highest level of stress, high pressure. And journalism always lands on that list. It is intense because your newsroom is competitive. And then also you're competing with other reporters at other news stations or newsrooms. And so every day you have to produce. Every day you're proving I am here and I'm adding value to my newsroom. And so I would say the competition and the high pressure and the deadlines, there was no saying, oh, I just didn't get that story in. You can't do that. You got to get your work in. And I still live by deadlines even till this day, good, bad, or indifferent. And so I would say that definitely one of those challenges to constantly kind of rise. But I want to turn that into a positive because what it did was I do really well when I'm under pressure. Anything else in life, anytime I've worked in any other place and there was a deadline and kind of a pressing on me, I actually excel in those moments. And I think it's because I had all those years of working in that type of climate.
Well, I think that's really important for our students to start thinking about as they step into college. There's going to be constant deadlines. And so remaining cool and motivated under pressure, not waiting to the last minute helps a lot. I didn't always do so well with that in college. But I absolutely love what you said about the voiceless and giving them a story. It can be so easy to just label somebody in one way, especially in this day and age, like a criminal or something like that, and it erases their whole humanity and story. And so the fact that that was your mission in your news work, we love that. We need more of that for sure. So thank you for that and for speaking to that for the students here today. Sayuri, we're coming to you. What's your question for Tamara?
When you applied for college, did you apply for any scholarships?
Yes. Again, coming from humble beginnings, someone had to pay for this education or help us. And I love this question, Sayuri, because originally I had this big dream. I was like, I want to be a kid from the projects that goes to a Ivy League college. And I actually got into an Ivy League school. I was accepted to Dartmouth. My mom wouldn't let me go because she was like, you're going to have a boatload of student loans afterward. And in retrospect, she was exactly right. But I share that with you because I was willing to cast a wide net. I didn't let anyone tell me, you can't apply there. If I thought I could make it, I definitely applied. For scholarships, yes. You have to do your homework though, because not all scholarships are just going to fall into your lap. Your guidance counselor at school isn't going to just always tell you, hey, apply for this scholarship. You and your parents or whoever the adult is in your life, you actually have to go out and look for those scholarship opportunities. And they are definitely out there. And one thing you want to make sure you're doing when you apply for those scholarships, tell them about a problem you solved. Because when you think about it, good grades, extracurriculars, sports, how many people already have that on their paper, right? But if you can tell them, hey, I solved a problem. I volunteered here, and the people who were being serviced through this nonprofit benefited from my work in this way. Or I came up with this great idea at my school, and now we're doing this. Tell them about a problem you solved. It could even be a project that you've done in class. Hey, I researched this and came up with this idea. And I think that if we could do more with it, this would be great for these reasons. And so when you're applying, let them know who you are, let them know why you want to be considered, but also let them know I'm someone who wants to go out in the world and solve problems and make a difference. And guess what? I'm already doing the work. I'm already laying the groundwork for who I'm going to be as a working adult. Great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you for already pouring into the students and giving them practical, actionable advice. Question for me, how many times have people told you no, or you couldn't do something, and did that stop you?
No, no, if it did, I wouldn't be on this show. You're going to be told no. You're going to be rejected. You're going to be disappointed. Sometimes you're even going to be heartbroken. Sometimes you're going to say, man, I really did my best. And I'll give you a recent example. I mentioned that I'm working on my doctoral, I'm in a doctoral program. I'm working on my degree. And I worked so hard on this paper, this research paper. And I just knew, I was like, I'm going to get an A. I'm accustomed to getting A's, and I didn't get an A. I didn't get an A. And I was just shook, as you all would say. And I was like, what happened? But I ran so fast. I jumped so high. I researched so much. I wrote this just effortlessly. What? And one of the things my professor said to me that actually sits with me in all areas of my life is she said, perfectionism, please leave it at the door. Sometimes the world tells us that we just have to be perfect. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as perfection. And also, when you try to be perfect, you can come across as inauthentic. People don't think you're real. And perfection can also stress you out. So we don't want to be stressed. We want to do things in excellence, but we also want to do things with excitement. Right. And
Yeah.
so once my professor said, hey, your perfectionism is unwelcome here. This program isn't about making you a straight A student. This program is about making you a better person, making you a well-rounded leader, making you someone who has an expertise, who really knows their stuff. And if you just focus on those things and not worrying about the grades will come. And I even tell my students that now, that perfectionism is unwelcome. I open the classroom door on the first day and I kind of act out kicking perfectionism out of the classroom to say, hey, pencils have erasers for a reason. We all make mistakes. How we learn from those mistakes, that's the most important thing. Okay. So,
Definitely. That's a great note. Perfectionism is unattainable. Somebody telling you you can't do something doesn't mean you can't attain that, but that perfection is going to create a sense of strife within yourself because you're just adding more pressure onto yourself in a world where there's too much already. So we don't want that.
right.
All right, Anthony, let's hear from you again. What question did you have for Tamara?
My question is like, what does your business what does they like do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you, Anthony, for asking. I'll give you a quick example. Like today, before I hopped on this call, I was presenting at a conference for nonprofits and talking to them about how they can use data to tell better stories about their nonprofit. And that's what I do. I help organizations or a client figure out how to get their message out there in the world, figure out how to tell that message, where to tell the message. Do we put it on social media? Do we put it in a video? Do we put it in a mailer? I also help organizations figure out what their story is, because sometimes clients really they don't really kind of have a formed idea of what they're trying to say. And so I try to strategize with them and come alongside them and help them to figure that out. Because as you know, when you're on social and you're scrolling through your feeds, there's a lot going on in the world. And think about, what are those things that make you stop and click on something? Or what are those things that make you stop and read it or watch the video? And so I'm that person who has to think about, how can I get Anthony and Sayuri to stop and click on this link or watch this video or listen to this podcast. And so I help organizations answer those kinds of questions and help them create content that can hopefully help their business.
Okay, so you always have your finger on the pulse of culture, what's going on around you. That's kind of a prescribed for your job. And then I bet there's a psychology component as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I laughed. I chuckled a little bit when you said that because my husband will often say, "Why are you on TMZ?" And I'm like, "This is research." It truly is. You know, I'm online, I'm reading all kinds of things because you do have to have your finger on the pulse of kind of what's trending and such. And then the psychology piece of it. So my doctoral degree is in counseling and psychological studies, psychology, industrial, organizational, psych IO is what it's usually known as, because I'm really fascinated. I get super curious about human behavior and how that impacts communication. So can I throw a question out to Anthony or Sayuri?
Yeah, we were just going to flip it over to them.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good segue.
So I'm curious to know, do adults tell you you don't talk enough? Sayuri's nodding her head. Sometimes, right? And when you're in your classes, are you that person who's always raising your hand or answering questions, or are you kind of quiet?
It kind of depends on like the subject.
It has to be interesting to you. Well, I'm really fascinated, particularly with your age group and what motivates you to communicate and what what you don't want to communicate about when you might be quiet or when you're in your phone. And adults might say, oh, that particular generation, they don't talk a whole lot and they don't engage enough. And I'm curious about it because there is a psychology component to it. Your how you have grown up, what you've experienced, maybe what your culture is. And I find all of that really, really fascinating as a communicator and as someone who generally can talk to anyone. But I'm interested in researching that a little bit more and really kind of understanding how to make students like you in your age group feel compelled to be courageous communicators. I really want my students to leave my classes feeling empowered, feeling courageous, and feeling like they could speak up and speak out or speak for someone. And there's a lot that goes into learning that and building that muscle. And the other thing that is really important is when you guys get to the age where you're looking for jobs, that's what your employers are going to expect from you. The folks that you will work for in the future want to make sure that you know how to communicate, that you know how to answer questions, that you know how to problem solve, that you know how to collaborate and work with a team, that you know how to resolve conflict or even prevent conflict. And so I'm just really, really fascinated with the psychology of that as well as the communication theory. And so communication studies actually is born out of a couple of different subjects, and psychology is one of them. So it seems like a natural pairing. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Courage and empowerment, just to use your voice. That can be very scary, but it should be a natural one to do, but it's just not always that. So thank you for speaking to that and pouring into students so they can step through that. Sayuri, you said you're thinking about going to college. What are you considering studying?
I'm thinking of like something within like having to do with medical stuff.
Nice. You'll do much better than I did, Sayuri. I was like, med school, nope, not going to happen. I think that's fantastic. And if you do want to do anything in the healthcare space, guess what? You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to engage people who are different than you. You're going to have to probably comfort people when they hear things that they don't want to hear. And so I would encourage you to start practicing communicating and talking and expressing yourself. And being on this call is a really great example of you doing that. So kudos to you for already leaning into that. I don't know, you guys, we might have a future doctor, future doctor, nurse practitioner, cardiothoracic surgeon maybe on the line. We want to see great things for you, Sayuri.
We sure do. And yeah, there's so many routes and opportunities in that field. So we're definitely rooting for you, want you to get as much experience. And we hope to see you again on the next call so that you can ask more of these questions to help you hone in and narrow down some of the pathways that you can start to take as you enter college. So thank you, Sayuri. Anthony, what about you? What are you thinking about pursuing as a career?
Either probably like business or like going to trade school.
Great options. And I teach at a community college. We do a lot of trade training. And I have a nephew, not a nephew, excuse me, a cousin who is working on his HVAC certification. You know how much air condition repair persons make? Electricians, they make a lot of money. These are things that we don't have a lot of people in the industry doing those types of work, because in our country there was a season where it was about doing kind of what they call knowledge work, right? Like you're at a desk and you're typing up reports. But now we need people who have that knowledge and also that ability to practice a trade. So Anthony, I think that's a great option. You can't go wrong with having a skill set that will ultimately help you support yourself and support your family. And I think that's fantastic. If you haven't considered a community college, I don't know, you're in DC, so you definitely have access to where I work, College of Southern Maryland. The Virginia Community College system is right there in your backyard. That's a great way to get into some of those trade programs and accomplish that work in a short amount of time and get you out into the workforce. So I'm rooting for you. I think that's fantastic.
Anthony, what did you think about that advice, or what route are you thinking about in the trade school?
I feel like probably like electrician, because like I'm like most of my family members, they work in that industry.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've already got
Yeah.
some mentorship in that realm. Yeah, go ahead, Tamara.
Right, right. Yeah, I have a sorority sister whose husband is an electrician in Chicago. And all I can tell you, Anthony, is he makes enough to go travel the world. He's living a good life. And so I wish the same for you. And I say go for it. And you're never too young to get started. You don't have to wait to get to the community college. You can call up. You can maybe go to work, shadow some of your relatives. You could call up a locally owned electrician and ask if you could shadow them for the summer, because sometimes what we need to do is actually experience that career that we think we want so that we can decide whether that's for us. And sometimes what happens is you decide, I've seen it up close and personal. That's not what I want. I can't tell you how many times I had interns in the news vehicle or in a live truck with me who were dead set on becoming news anchors and reporters. But after they spent a summer observing how hard I had to work and how parts of the industry are not as glamorous as they seem, some of them changed their minds. Some of them were like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. So, see if you can find some opportunities before you get to college to explore that a little bit more.
Great actionable advice. And thank you for your perseverance and sticking through to be a mentor and somebody people can look up to as they pursue those careers. So, Anthony, what's the top thing you picked up from Tamara today? What resonated with you?
That like if you persevere, like you could do anything that you want. Because like she said, but she came from like humble beginnings, and that she's like in the place that she's at because she never like quit.
Yes, perseverance. And Sayori, what about you? What did you pick up from today's conversation?
That if you push yourself enough, you can get what you want.
All right. Well, you have given these students some additional motivation that they will surely it will continue to encourage them as they step into their pathways, careers, next steps, college applications, all the like of the exciting stuff that's coming up for them. I'll give you an opportunity to share some final words of wisdom.
I think I've shared quite a few nuggets. I would just like to thank Anthony and Sayuri for being on the line. Eileen, I really appreciate this opportunity to share, and just want you to know the work that you're doing is very important and needed. And then I would just like to remind Anthony and Sayuri that one day you're going to be sitting in this seat. So think about the things that you will be telling future students at your high school. What will you want to share with them? What story might you want to be able to tell about yourself? And let that propel you forward. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I appreciate the opportunity to share.
I love leaving them with something else to think about. What's that website for 1010 Communications, Tamara?
Yeah, it's just 1010communication.com.
We've been speaking with Tamara Gibbs-Franklin of 1010 Communications. She's the CEO over there, and our student co-hosts Sayori and Anthony from DC International. You're listening to Access Co-Leaders. We'll see you next time.